Welcome to all 4C learning classes. This is session 14 of the chapter 3. So far we have discussed the lymph that is not that which is the ECF, but when the ECF of 15% from the extracellular spaces that enters into the lymph capillary itself is named to be the lymph. Now, the lymph that is entered into the lymph capillaries, which is the lacteals, lymph capillaries into lymph vessels into lymphatic duct. Lymphatic duct, which is the right and the left, what drain this lymph into the veins at the junction of the jugular vein and the jugular vein as well as subclavian vein and jugular vein. Definitely you raise a doubt of this, that I will show diagrammatically. Look at here. Generally, right atrium what collect the impure blood from the different parts, which includes right precaval and the left precaval and the postcaval vein. This is the diagram to be it is the diagram to be seen importantly. There you will come across these terms. What we have discussed is the lymph is collecting the fluid from different parts, and it includes the fat also, as the fat is large molecular and it is insoluble in water, it cannot enter into the blood. That's the reason why this is entering into the lymph capillaries. Already we discussed in the lacteals of the villi. So it is with the large amount of, comparative to the blood, it is with the large amount of the fat. So that collected lymph capillaries, lymph vessel, lymphatic duct. At the junction of the subclavian vein and jugular vein, this lymphatic duct drain the lymph into the blood. In fact, these two are also the vein. Let's see what are those. The precaval vein, what have the branches named to be the? Have a branches named to be jugular. Next, the subclavian, mammary, internal mammary, vertebral, like the branches of precaval of right and left have the branches named to be the jugular, subclavian, internal mammary, vertebral. Likewise, they are the branches which are bringing the blood into the precaval. The jugular is particularly jugular. What collect it is of two branches. Remind you, the jugular is of two types. One external jugular. I'll write here. This is external jugular and another is the internal jugular. External jugular and internal jugular. Basically, these are collecting the blood from external jugular, collect the blood from what is called from the lips, tongue and the jaws, salivary glands. Internal jugular vein collect the blood from the brain. So already we discussed, that is the left thoracic duct collect the blood from the head, neck region, chest and shoulder. So particularly what the branches we see at the head region? Jugular. So external and internal jugular vein, which is collecting the blood from the entire head. Next, subclavian vein from the neck, shoulder region, that collected is so at the junction of subclavian and jugular vein. which is collecting the blood. At that junction, it is draining the lymph into these. There how it finally enters into the venous blood circulation. Venous blood circulation. Now you may raise a doubt. Why it is entering into the blood? That's what it is. We say it is a middleman as well as accessory route. For what purpose? Generally, the blood capillaries cannot reach each and every region, certain regions where lymph capillaries can go and collect. First point. Second point is fat cannot enter into the blood. So, is it that don't we need the fat? Definitely. So, is it that the fat remain left at the tissues? No. So, in order to carry such fat, this is the passage. That's what it is named to be the accessory route. So, the ECF, which is 15% at the tissues, at the extracellular spaces, intercellular spaces, fluid containing fats. Next, CO2. Next, the fluid is about drain into the capillaries of microscopic blind-ended porous, name it to be the lymph capillaries. This is such lymph capillaries bring about such lymph into lymph vessels, lymphatic duct, and drain the lymph into the venous or blood circulation at the junction of subclavian and jugular vein. Jugular vein collect the blood from the head region, both from brain and other parts of the brain, other parts of the head, whereas subclavian from the shoulder, chest region, memory region is this, shoulder is this, that's all. So neck, head, chest and shoulder region, the lymph from the both the sides. Right side is the right lymphatic duct, left lymphatic duct. This is how the right lymphatic duct, left lymphatic duct. The collected lymph at the junction of subclavian and jugular vein released into the venous circulation. Now you raise a doubt. Why it is joining? In fact, all the lymph is a part of the blood itself. The blood which is diffused at the arteriolar ends due to hydrostatic pressure, which creates the filtration and filtered the large amount of the fluid with the nutrients, oxygen. Small sized proteins are diffused into the intercellular spaces. Out of that, the colloidal pressure created at the capillary ends of the veins due to the large sized plasma protein, 85% of the ECF drift back into the capillaries of the vein, remaining 15% at the extracellular spaces, which is the ECF of 15% entered into the capillaries, then lymph vessels, lymphatic duct, at the junction of subclavian and jugular vein it is released. If it is stopped, let's find out what happens. If this 15% is not reached the blood, what happens? In fact, it is a part of it, but 15% is deficient. So, fluidity of the blood decreases. Fluidity of blood decreases, and viscosity of the blood increases. Viscosity of blood increases. If 2 points to remember, fluidity of the blood decreases and the viscosity of the blood increases. Is that a fluid flow freely or a jelly or else viscous one flow? Fluid. So if viscosity of the blood increases, this is going to be showing the adverse effect on the metabolism as well as entire body functions. That's the reason why lymph needs to be drained into the venous circulation. And this is how all the activities are normally done in a natural manner, in a normal condition. So this is what all about the lymph. This is the reason why the lymph can be said to be the once a part of the ECF, but it is again joined the blood. That's the reason why it is a necessary route. For what purpose? It is the purpose of transport of the fat, which are digested and are need to be transported. Why? As the fat cannot enter into the large size, they are insoluble in water, cannot enter into the blood. One point. Second point to see, it's a composition if we see. That's the reason why it has to be transported. If it is not transported, the viscosity increases and the fluidity decreases. This may show the adverse effect. That's the reason why lymph is a necessary route and a middleman between the tissues and the blood. Is it right? That's what. And the lymph, in fact, where does it is generated? The question you raise is at the ECF itself. And lymphatic system is an open type of system which includes the lymphoid organs. The lymphoid organs of the lymphatic system are lymphoid organs, we say, which produces the lymphocytes. None other than the primary and secondary lymphoid organs are spleen, thymus, and the tonsils, and recall your memory, Peyer's patches. These are all what said to be the lymphoid organs. And malt, also we see mucosa associated lymphoid tissues. Generally, a system will have organs. These are the organs. Organ will have tissues. That is nothing but malt. Mucosa associated lymphoid tissues. Malt stands for mucosa associated lymphoid tissues. And this is about the 50% of the total the lymphatic system. 50% is what tissues are part of the malt itself. This is what all lymphatic system. In this connection, the point to remember, the spleen is said to be the largest lymphoid organ. Generally, it is also considered to be the reservoir of RBCs. And spleen is the part which trap the blood-borne antigen and make available for the what is called the immune cells, and it made available the antigen to the lymphocytes. This is how the lymphocytes mature. We have discussed that is thymus and bone marrow, which are primary lymphoid organ, produce the B cells and the pre-T cells. Pre-T cells what mature in the thymus. The thymus where the lymphocytes are mature are T lymphocytes. These lymphocytes enter into the spleen where they become the functional cells, and B lymphocytes produce antibodies. So spleen is a part of the lymphoid organ which produces the RBCs and also antibodies, immunoglobulins. This is how it plays a role in the immune system. Spleen is the largest lymphoid organ, and it is a hemopoietic organ, that is blood cells producing till up to lymphocytes are nothing but blood cells itself. Lymphocytes. So it is a hemopoietic organ up to the 5th month of spleen is considered to be the hemopoietic organ till up to the 5th month of the gestation period. Recall your memory, we have discussed. So regarding that, spleen is the largest lymphoid organ, and it is the one where the blood-borne antigens are trapped, and it generates the lymphocytes. and it is a hemopoietic organ till up to the 5th month of the time period. Now, so the lymph that is in fact a part of the ECF that is flow through the lymph capillaries, lymph vessel, lymphatic duct, and drain it into the blood circulation, that is of the veins at the junction of subclavian and jugular vein. Now, how does it flow? That is, the lymphatic vessels and veins are with the smooth muscles. The smooth muscles what exhibit the peristaltic movement, and this peristaltic movement allow the lymph flowing towards the lymphatic duct, and which is finally drain the lymph into the blood venous system. So as this is flowing, you may raise a question that what about if microorganisms are present? Definitely present. When the fluid from the extracellular fluid drift into the capillaries, definitely microorganisms are present. Then how about how the body resists against that? If it is flowing through the lymph, how the lymph protect the body from microorganisms? As the lymph is flowing through this lymphatic vessel, lymphatic duct in the lymphatic system, there present the nodules. There present the nodules. The nodules are arranged in a branched manner. These are what name it to be the lymphatic nodules. Lymphatic nodules. Lymphatic nodules. These lymphatic nodules trap the microorganisms. These lymphatic nodules produce the phagocytes. What do you mean by phagocytes? Cell eating. So as the lymph is flowing through these lymphatic nodules, recall your memory, we have discussed that there are nodules all along the length of the small intestine, but in the ileum region you find the bunches of the nodules, name it to be the Peyer's patches, secondary lymphoid organs, which produce the phagocytes. Recall your memory at the digestive system under the digestive tract we discussed. Ileum is a characteristic feature of Peyer's patches. Those are nothing but the nodules of the lymphatic tissues, which are arranged all along the length of the ileum. But they are what in a bunches manner, name it to be the Peyer's patches, which produce the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are of phagocytic in nature. They are of phagocytic in production. What do you mean by phagocytes? Killing bacteria. So if the microorganisms that enter into the lymph are being destroyed by phagocytes, so this is how it protects the body and make the lymph free from the microbes. So one, the absorbed nutrients called the fat. Two, the phagocytes it contains, so it produces, so it protects the body, and even the hormones as well as the enzymes, antibodies are all. How antibodies? We have discussed the lymphoid organ spleen, which is what produces the lymphocytes. B lymphocytes are of antibodies in production. So antibodies. So antibodies, certain enzymes, small sized proteins. Next, the phagocytes, fat, fluid, carbon dioxide, microbe, all is what the composition of the lymph, which is drained into the general circulation. However, all these are also part of the blood. But do you find the differences? Definitely. What differences? Blood is red in color, lymph is colorless. Blood is with RBC, but lymph is without RBC. Make a note, these are differences. Blood is with RBC, lymph is without RBC. That's the reason why it is colorless. WBCs of all types are present in the blood, but only lymphocytes are present in the lymph. Next, the blood clotting proteins are more in the blood, less in the lymph. So blood quickly clot, lymph slowly clot. These are the differences we find in the case of the lymph when compared with the blood. Next, so this is how we show the differences between the blood and lymph. Next, certain times and even one more point you must remember, not only the RBC is absent in the case of the lymph, but blood platelets are also absent. One of the condition, a disease, an infectious disease, nothing but dengue. Dengue is in the recent past, seasonally dengue have created havoc among the population. That is, it is an infectious. The dengue is characterized by decreased number of the thrombocytes, blood platelets. This is one of the symptoms. As the blood platelets reduce, naturally it leads to the blood failed to clot. So under these conditions, blood platelets are what we see transported into the individuals who are suffering from blood platelets. Right, next, one of the symptoms we see the case with the pregnant woman. A pregnant woman, as the time proceeds towards the parturition, the size of the fetus, womb, what grows. As the fetus grow, so this size of the abdomen increases, and this abdomen what increases the pressure on the veins. The pressure as the size of the fetus increases, so abdominal region, the vein, they what exert pressure on the veins. This exertion of the pressure on the veins releases the fluid into the legs region. Why? As the more and more the fetus size increase towards the fetus parturition time, pregnancy, so it exerts pressure on the abdominal vein, so the fluid diffuse into the legs region where it swells. That is an edema. And as after the pregnancy you find no swelling in the legs, that is all the fluid is go back. That's what we see. And one more point to remember, we see a infection to the lymphatic system. You know very well. That is, in first year we have discussed a pathogen named to be the Wuchereria bancrofti. Wuchereria bancrofti. Wuchereria bancrofti. Wuchereria bancrofti, what causes the filariasis? Filariasis is basically the Wuchereria bancrofti is a digenetic parasite. Primary host is being the man and secondary host is Culex mosquito. When a Culex mosquito bites human beings, the third stage of the microfilaria larva enters into the human blood, and naturally there is a link. The microbes are through the blood, it enters into the lymphatic system. Just now we have seen the arteries, arterioles, capillaries. Since the microfilaria larva is very microscopic, that's what we see. As a larva it enters, as a smaller microscopic form it enters, and it becomes a larger one. So it enters into the lymph capillaries, and this infection by microfilaria larva may be light infection or heavy infection. In a light infection, we see the inflammation in the lymph vessels and the lymphatic duct. The lymph vessels and lymph glands, it is a term used in lymph glands. There is no such lymph gland. It is nothing but the nodules. So the inflammation in the lymph vessels is named to be the lymphangitis. Lymphangitis, which is angio refers to blood vessels we say. Angio refers to vessels. So inflammation in the lymph vessels is named to be the lymphangitis. And inflammation, the symptoms of the Wuchereria bancrofti infection may be light infection or heavy infection, which includes the lymphangitis, inflammation in the lymph vessels, whereas the inflammation in the lymph glands named to be the lymphadenitis, adeno gland, in that way it is named. In fact, the lymphatic system parts itself named to be the adenoids, the swollen parts. If the inflammation in the lymph vessels is named to be the lymphangitis, and that in the glands, adenoids, is named to be the lymphadenitis. It is what are the initial. Whereas if it is increases, if the infection increases, this shows the adverse effect. However, lymphangitis and the lymphadenitis are seen. Further, if the number of the microbes increase, larva increase, causes the lymph fluid coming out. For suppose here the blockages by means of the microbes allow the diffusion of the lymph into the neighboring regions. Okay, lymph is collected from the different parts, shoulders as well as the limbs and every part of the body. So due to blockages causes the diffusion of the lymph into neighboring areas where the swelling results, which is what named to be the lymphedema. Lymphedema is what we see, lymphedema, swelling of the legs, limbs, and the testicles, mammary glands, leading to lymphedema. Besides that, in a severe infection, the skin becomes dry, where the dead forms causes where the severe infection, the skin becomes dry, and degeneration of the sweat glands. One, swelling of the limbs. Two, the accumulation of the fluid what swells, and the sweat glands disintegrate, skin become dry. Such condition is named to be the elephantiasis. That is, the legs appear to be that of like an elephant, so it is elephantiasis. So that is also we do discuss. So entirely this is the description and summary about the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is a open type. It includes the lymph capillaries, lymph vessels, and the lymphatic duct. In fact, the lymph is once a part of the ECF. The 15% of the ECF that drift into microscopic, blind-ended, porous capillaries are lymph capillaries that lead into lymph vessel, that into lymphatic duct. Such collected lymph at the junction of the subclavian vein and jugular vein drain into the blood circulation. This is the main reason why we say the lymph is considered to be the middleman and accessory route, middleman between the tissues and the blood. And the necessary route, already there is a route via the blood, but why it is there? As the lymph blood into which the fat cannot diffuse transport, as it is insoluble, so this is a passage where they are diffused. So it is an open type of circulatory system. Besides that, there are lymph nodules which are arranged like a tree, and these are what containing the phagocytes which are for the phagocytosis. So collectively, what is the functions we see in the case of the lymphatic system? 1. Transport of the fat which are digested and absorbed or transported. 2. It is also for what is called the phagocytosis done by present in the lymphatic nodules. Next, it is also for the transportation. These are all what and it avoids the viscosity of the blood by joining it into the main blood stream into the veins.